It's the kind of darkness that makes the ocean feel endless. Pre-dawn in the Arabian Sea, where the horizon disappears and even a massive ship can feel alone. A U.S. Navy supply ship moves through the black water on a steady track. No skyline, no friendly port lights, just the low vibration of engines, the hiss of wind, and the faint glow of instruments on the bridge. Then the radar operator leans in. Fast contacts. Not one, not two, multiple returns, closing. Too fast to be fishermen drifting, too coordinated to be random traffic. A few seconds later, the first white wakes appear. Thin, sharp lines cutting across the dark from more than one direction. And suddenly it's clear what this is. A swarm forming, compressing the distance, looking for angles. 17 Somali pirates, several skiffs, one target that can't simply outrun the problem before it reaches the rails. And here's the part most people miss. This isn't a cruise ship story. There's no pool deck, no tourists. This ship is a lifeline. Fuel, parts, supplies, the quiet logistics that keep a carrier group moving. If pirates control it, even briefly, the tempo of everything around it changes. Routes shift, timelines slip, risk multiplies. Because the moment a boarding attempt becomes a takeover, it stops being a chase and becomes leverage. Minutes decide everything. The skiffs tighten their approach, riding the chop, aiming for that one moment where a ladder can catch, where a crew can be boxed in, where control can flip faster than anyone on shore can even understand what's happening. And the pirates believe they picked the perfect victim. Big, valuable, and most importantly, alone. But they're wrong. Because below the surface, in a world without moonlight and without mercy, something has already been tracking the disturbance. A hidden escort, a silent guardian in the deep, watching the pattern of the swarm long before the skiffs can see what's watching them. Up on the bridge, a single decision forms. Not panic, procedure. Not noise, signal. And that's where tonight's story truly begins. Because what happens next isn't about the loudest weapon. It's about the fastest chain of decisions. On screen, remember this sequence. Detect, compromised, signal, shadow response. One covert protocol triggers a reaction across 3 domains: sea, sky, and below. And in the next minutes, we're going to decode exactly how that chain closes, and why these 17 pirates made the most dangerous mistake at the worst possible time. In the piracy stories people remember, the camera always stays on the moment of contact, the skiffs, the ladder, the panic. But if you want to understand why this matters, you have to zoom out first. Because the Arabian Sea and the Gulf of Aden aren't just water. They're a system. Look at the map and you see the trap. Long transit lanes, predictable routes, and wide stretches where help can be minutes away, or hours. Before dawn, visibility collapses. The horizon becomes a dark line. A small boat can vanish in the chop, then reappear much closer than your instincts think is possible. And out here, distance is not comfort, it's vulnerability. A ship can be enormous and still feel exposed, because it can't stop on a dime, it can't turn like a speedboat, and it can't easily tell the difference between harmless traffic and a coordinated approach until the pattern becomes obvious. That's why the pre-dawn window matters so much. In the dark, the attacker controls the question, what are you seeing? And if you hesitate, even briefly, the gap closes itself. Now, here's the second thing most people misunderstand. Pirates are not looking for a fair fight. They're not trying to win a battle. They're hunting leverage. Leverage means control of the deck, control of the bridge, control of the crew's movement. And once they have that control, once they can isolate a ship's people from the ship's systems, The story becomes negotiations, not navigation. A takeover doesn't have to last long to be catastrophic. It only has to last long enough to create a new reality. We can demand terms. That's why swarms exist. Multiple skiffs from multiple angles aren't about firepower. They're about confusion, intimidation, and speed. Pressure that forces the ship to make mistakes. If one ladder catches, if one group gets a foothold near access points, the attack shifts from approach to containment. And containment is where leverage is born. So why is a US Navy supply ship such a prize? Because logistics is the bloodstream of naval power. You can have the most advanced warships on the planet, but they still run on fuel, spare parts, food, and the constant rhythm of replenishment. A supply ship is not glamorous, but it is essential. It supports tempo. It supports endurance. It supports the ability to stay on station, stay in the fight, and keep the carrier group moving. In this dramatized reconstruction, the pirates believe the ship is carrying critical support for a carrier strike group, fuel and high-value supplies. That belief changes the calculus. This isn't just a ransom target, it's a strategic disruption target. If they can seize it, they don't just gain money, they force the Navy to respond, to reroute assets, to burn time, to reveal patterns. Even a short-lived compromise can create ripple effects far beyond the deck. And that brings us to the part that feels almost unfair, because it's designed to be. Modern naval protection often works best when it doesn't announce itself. A visible escort can deter, yes, but it can also be tracked. It can be studied. It can be avoided. And it can be used by attackers as a signal. This ship is protected. Choose another. That's useful in many situations. But when the goal is to catch a swarm at the moment it reveals intent, visibility is a trade-off. That's where the guardian angel concept comes in. An escort that isn't there, at least not in any way the pirates can confirm. Because the ocean has a second battlefield beneath the surface. A shadow can follow at a distance. Sensors can watch the pattern of movement. The moment the skiffs commit to a coordinated approach, the picture becomes clearer, and the response can be staged before the attackers even realize they've crossed a line. It's not about waiting for chaos. It's about waiting for certainty. And when certainty appears, the response doesn't have to be loud at first. It has to be fast, authenticated, and coordinated. A single verified signal can turn a lone ship into a connected node in a much larger network, one that can pull eyes, aircraft, and decision-makers into the same moment. That's why this story isn't really ship versus skiffs. It's time versus intention. It's detection versus deception. And it's the difference between a crew being isolated and a crew staying connected long enough for the board to flip. Because in the next minutes, an attack becomes a compromise. Then a signal changes everything. And once that signal goes out, the ocean stops being empty. It becomes a map of closing options, collapsing angles, and a response moving in from directions the pirates never planned for. In this dramatized reconstruction, the first rush doesn't look like a movie battle. It looks like math. Closing speed, angles, and a ship that suddenly realizes it's being approached with intent. The skiffs come in fast, riding low on the chop, appearing and disappearing between swells. A moment ago, they were dots on a screen. Now they're silhouettes with white wakes behind them, splitting into lanes like they've practiced this 100 times. The ship's watch team is small, just enough eyes to scan the dark, just enough hands to keep routine running. And routine is exactly what the swarm is designed to break. The first skiff darts toward the ship's quarter. Another cuts wide to the opposite side. A third hangs back, just far enough to watch, to read the ship's reactions, to exploit whatever hesitation follows. The distance collapses so quickly that it feels unreal, like the ocean itself is pulling them in. On deck, floodlights flare brighter. A warning horn cuts across the wind, but the skiffs keep coming. Not because they want a fight, because they want a moment. Hooks, a ladder, anything that catches. And that's the problem with swarms. They don't need to be perfect. They just need to be relentless. If one attempt fails, the next one is already arriving from a new angle. The watch team tries to track multiple contacts at once, stern, port, starboard, while the bridge calls out headings and speeds, trying to turn the ship's mass into a defensive weapon. But a supply ship isn't a patrol craft. It can't snap into tight turns. It can't accelerate like a skiff. It can only buy time. And the swarm is spending that time aggressively. Within minutes, the situation starts to tilt toward the word every crew member hates, because it means the margin is shrinking. Compromised. Not taken, not lost. Compromised means the ship is at risk of losing the clean separation between crew and threat. It means the attackers are close enough that the ship's normal routines become liabilities. Open access points, predictable movement paths, doors that take seconds too long to secure, communications that can be disrupted by pure chaos. The bridge tightens, the tone changes. The captain's voice becomes shorter. The watch officer's callouts become clipped and precise. The ship's internal alarm pattern shifts from caution to action. The crew is directed away from exposed areas. Access points are sealed in sequence, and the most important instruction comes through with a cold simplicity. Keep the ship moving. Keep the ship lit. Keep the ship connected. Because once pirates can isolate the crew, once they can force people into a contained area and turn the ship into a hostage environment, the story stops being about navigation and starts being about leverage. Even a brief compromise can create cascading risk. Lost communications, forced course changes, panic decisions made under pressure, and a crisis that spreads faster than help can arrive. On the surface, it looks like the pirates are winning momentum. They're close enough now that the ship's floodlights throw hard shadows across the waves. They're close enough that the bridge can see individual boats pivoting in the swell, trying to match the ship's motion like predators adjusting to a wounded animal. And yet, hidden inside the chaos is a different kind of decision, one that doesn't happen on deck and doesn't need an audience. A junior officer, trained for exactly this nightmare, moves with purpose through a corridor that stays unlit, away from the brightest deck zones, away from the places the swarm is trying to force attention. The ship's defense isn't only water and steel. It's procedure. It's discipline. It's the ability to do the right thing while everything outside is demanding panic. He reaches a secured point and pulls a small device free, something protected, something designed for the moment when the worst case becomes possible. He doesn't make a speech. He doesn't hesitate. He triggers an encrypted emergency burst, brief, authenticated, and deliberately minimal. The Silent Hunter Protocol. It isn't a scream for help. It's a signature. A precise signal that says one thing clearly. This ship is in danger of compromise, and the response must move now, quietly, quickly, and in coordination. The ocean doesn't react, not visibly. The pirates don't look up and see an answer. They don't hear jets. They don't see a destroyer cresting the horizon. The sea remains dark. The waves remain indifferent, and the skiffs keep pushing their geometry toward the ship. But below the surface, the world changes instantly. Cut to the submarine's control room, washed in red light, the kind that preserves night vision and keeps faces half hidden. Inside, there's no shouting, no running. just noise discipline and breath control. The controlled environment of people who are trained to turn seconds into decisions. A sonar operator tracks the acoustic picture like a living map. A tactical officer watches the display with stillness that feels unnatural, because nothing about this moment is calm, except the people who have trained to stay calm inside it. Then, the signal arrives. Not as a dramatic alarm, but as a quiet confirmation tone. A change on a display, a message that appears in a secure channel. And for a split second, everything pauses. Not from shock, but from verification. Authenticate the source, confirm the code, confirm the timestamp.
Execute.
Because in this world, the difference between action and disaster can be one false assumption. When the authentication completes, the submarine doesn't charge toward the surface like a movie monster. It does something far more dangerous. It begins closing the response chain without revealing itself. It shadows the contact zone, adjusting position based on the pattern of movement above.
It listens. It watches. It builds certainty. Who is moving, how fast, and what the geometry of the swarm is trying to achieve. And then comes the next step: eyes. In this dramatized scenario, the submarine deploys a small reconnaissance drone package, something designed to rise and give a real-time picture without announcing the submarine's presence. The idea is simple, even if the technology is complex. From below the surface, you can't see the full board. You need a view from above. Minutes ago, the ship was fighting with incomplete information. Dots on radar, glimpses in floodlights, a constant struggle to distinguish threat from noise. Now that begins to change. A camera view stabilizes overhead, the kind of cold clarity that turns chaos into patterns. The swarm isn't just boats. It's lanes. It's roles. It's a lead skiff, a flank skiff, a rear skiff watching for weakness. And once you can see the roles, you can predict the next move. That real-time picture is pushed, fast, into the Navy's network. Flash traffic routes outward. A carrier strike group receives the alert. In a combat information center, operators begin plotting the contact picture, aligning it with patrol assets, response procedures, and the rules that govern how force is shown, how warnings are issued, and how control is regained. The pirates on the surface don't know any of this. They don't know the signal has been authenticated. They don't know a quiet chain of decisions has started closing around them. All they feel is the wind, the spray, and the pressure of trying to finish the job before something changes. But something has already changed, because now the ship is no longer isolated. It's connected through a protocol, through a verification chain, through a hidden guardian that has taken the chaos and turned it into a track. And when that track is shared, the response stops being a hope. It becomes a schedule. It becomes aircraft that can be vectored with purpose. It becomes assets moving with a plan. It becomes time pressure applied from directions the swarm never accounted for. So as the skiffs continue their rush, and the ship fights to stay moving and stay sealed, the real turning point is already underway, quietly, relentlessly, beneath the surface and across the network. Because from this moment forward, the story is no longer pirates versus a lone ship. It is pirates versus a response clock. And now, that clock has started. In the Combat Information Center, the ocean is never empty. It's a screen full of moving problems, tracks, ranges, headings, and the cold logic of time. And when the priority message arrives, it doesn't land like a rumor. It lands like a switch flipping. A supply ship is at risk of compromise. Multiple fast craft, coordinated approach, silent hunter protocol authenticated.
That last part changes everything. Because now the chain isn't built on assumptions, it's built on certainty. The CIC doesn't debate whether it might be pirates. It treats the situation as a closing window and starts tasking assets before the window closes. A helo package is pulled into the timeline. A response team is placed on alert. Sensors are aligned to the contact picture, and the strike group does what it does best. It turns distance into minutes. This is where the story stops being a ship under pressure and becomes something bigger, an operation with roles, timing, and control. The goal isn't to create the biggest explosion. The goal is to collapse the pirates' options faster than they can adapt. Because swarms don't win by strength. They win by confusion. So the response hits the swarm where it's weakest: coordination. In this dramatized scenario, the next move isn't a dramatic gunfight, it's denial. A layer of electronic pressure comes online, jamming and interference that doesn't need to touch the ship to change the outcome. The pirates' world is small. Phones, handheld radios, cheap GPS units, shouted signals in the wind. It works when everything is going their way and the target is isolated. But when that invisible pressure starts, their tools start lying to them. A call that should connect doesn't. A radio squelch becomes static. GPS headings drift. Messages don't land. And what looks like a minor inconvenience becomes a fatal fracture. Because swarm tactics require a shared plan. They require multiple boats to hold angles, to time their runs, to converge at the same moment. Take away their ability to coordinate, and you don't have a swarm. You have separate boats making separate decisions. And that's when the tempo flips. Above the surface, the ship is still fighting for time, still lit up, still sealed, still moving. Skiffs still dart in and out at the edge of safety, searching for one more opening. But the shape of the attack begins to loosen, as if the ocean is stretching the formation apart. That's the first sign the kill chain is closing. Not because someone fired the loudest weapon, because the pirates are losing the ability to act as one. Then the sound arrives. At first, it's almost mistaken for the wind, just a faint, distant thump carried across the water. But it builds fast. Rotors, closing, low and hard. The helicopter doesn't appear like a hero in a spotlight. It appears like a fact, sudden, heavy, and positioned exactly where the pirates don't want it. The beam cuts through the mist, locks onto the lead skiff, and instantly the night stops belonging to the attackers. In this dramatized reconstruction, the helicopter's first move isn't to attack, it's to control. It announces presence. It issues warnings. It sets the boundaries of the sea. And it positions itself between the skiffs and the ship in a way that forces choices. Every time a skiff tries to run a direct line, the helicopter's geometry denies the lane. Every time a boat tries to circle wide, the spotlight follows and the pressure stays overhead. Light becomes a weapon without firing a shot. Because light removes concealment, and once concealment is gone, intimidation collapses. The pirates can still move fast, but now they're moving fast under observation. Their advantage was never raw power. Their advantage was the belief that they could close unseen, board quickly, and create a hostage reality before anyone could stop them. Now that belief dies by degrees, minute by minute, pass by pass, under the constant certainty of an aircraft that can see the whole board. And then comes the recovery operation. In this dramatized scenario, a response team is inserted onto the supply ship to resecure key spaces, restore internal control, and ensure the crew stays connected. It's not portrayed as chaos, it's portrayed as procedure under pressure. Short commands, controlled movement, a plan built around reducing risk. This is where you understand the difference between Hollywood and real operations. The mission is not to win a firefight. The mission is to remove leverage. The moment leverage disappears, the pirate's purpose disappears with it. Above, the helicopter keeps doing the same thing, relentlessly. It tracks, it warns, it denies, it forces separation. And separation is the death of the swarm. One skiff peels away, then another. The boats that remain start widening their spacing, as if they're trying to pretend they were never part of a coordinated attack at all. Their movements stop looking like a plan and start looking like escape. And that's the point. Because when a swarm realizes it can't win quickly, it has to decide whether to gamble everything or survive to try again another day. In this dramatized scenario, the response doesn't stop at the waterline, because piracy is rarely just 5 boats and a ladder. It's a network. Fuel, communications, staging points, people who buy information, people who store equipment, people who wait for the right night and the right ship. So the story widens, not into graphic violence, but into strategic consequence. The response expands from saving the ship to collapsing the network. That means mapping the contacts, tracking where the skiffs retreat, identifying support vessels, watching for the mothership that can refuel and extend range, because that's how small boats become a persistent threat instead of a one-night raid. And now the pirates face the real danger of modern naval power. They aren't just being chased, they're being connected to a bigger picture. Every minute they stay in the area increases the chance that the network around them gets exposed.
Send the package.
Every minute they run, they leave patterns. And patterns are what the Navy hunts. Which brings us to the final beat, the mistake that turns this from a close call into a warning. In this dramatized reconstruction, the pirates don't simply scatter. They try to fall back toward a support vessel, a mothership waiting beyond the immediate scene, thinking distance will erase the problem. But distance doesn't erase a tracked chain. It only stretches it. Below the surface, the submarine maintains shadow, silent, patient, and positioned for interception rather than spectacle. Above, aircraft widen their search and tighten the net. And what the pirates believed was an exit route becomes a corridor under observation. The mothership is spotted, identified, boxed by geometry the same way the supply ship was nearly boxed earlier, except now the pirates are the ones trapped inside a closing shape. And that's the capstone lesson of this entire episode. Swarm tactics feel unstoppable, right up until coordination breaks. Because the swarm isn't a weapon, it's a relationship. It's boats acting as one mind. And the moment that one mind fractures, through light, through denial, through time pressure, through a response chain that closes faster than fear can spread, the swarm stops being a threat. It becomes targets making individual decisions. It becomes retreat. It becomes collapse. So remember the decoded truth at the heart of this story. Swarm tactics die when coordination dies. And once the kill chain closes, the most dangerous moment isn't the first approach. It's the moment the pirates realize they were never attacking a lone ship at all. When the last wake finally fades into the dark, what's left isn't a victory speech. It's a lesson. Because modern maritime confrontations rarely end with a single dramatic moment. They end with a pattern being broken. And if you strip this episode down to what actually mattered, you can carry the same logic into almost any piracy scenario on the ocean. Here are the 3 tactical takeaways: simple, repeatable, and brutally true. First, time beats firepower. People always ask the same question: why not just shoot? Because the real contest happens before anyone gets close enough for that to matter. In the early minutes, the most valuable weapon is not a trigger. It's awareness. It's detection. It's the ability to recognize a coordinated approach before it becomes a boarding attempt. And in this story, the second half of that equation is authentication. Rapid, verified confirmation that turns uncertainty into action. A ship can survive fear. What it can't survive is delay. Time buys distance. Distance buys options. Options are what keep control from flipping. Second, eyes win fights. On the surface, a swarm feels overwhelming because it's designed to saturate attention. Multiple angles, multiple boats, multiple maybes. But the moment a real-time picture forms, overhead sensors, tracked lanes, clear roles, the chaos becomes a system you can manage. That's why reconnaissance changes outcomes. UAV imagery isn't just cool footage, it's decision speed. It's the ability to see the whole board and stop reacting blindly. When you can see, you can predict. When you can predict, you can position. And when you can position, you can deny. Third, break coordination. A swarm is powerful only while it remains one mind. The instant it turns into separate boats making separate choices, it loses the ability to force a takeover. That's why electronic pressure and overwatch matter so much. Not because they're the loudest tools, but because they target the swarm's weakness: communication, timing, and shared intent. Deny comms, deny lanes, apply time pressure, keep a spotlight on the decision points, and the swarm collapses under its own need to coordinate. Now step back even further, because there's a bigger lesson hiding underneath all three. Supply lines are the real battlefield. Warships get the headlines, but logistics decide endurance. Fuel, parts, and replenishment are what keep presence alive. When pirates target supply, they're not just hunting money, they're trying to disrupt the rhythm that makes naval power continuous. That's why supply ships become high-value targets, and why protecting them is about more than the ship itself. It's about the system behind it. And the second big lesson is the one that makes this episode feel almost unfair to the attackers. Invisible protection is still protection. Sometimes the most effective escort is the one you can't see. A shadow beneath the surface, a guardian that doesn't announce itself. Because deterrence can make threats choose a different target, but stealth can let a response catch the threat when it reveals intent. In this story's logic, the ocean isn't empty, it's layered, and the layer you don't see can be the one that decides the outcome. Now, one important note before we close, because credibility matters. On screen, dramatized reconstruction based on modern naval capabilities and piracy patterns. That single sentence protects viewer trust, keeps expectations honest, and lets us focus on what this channel does best: decoding how these encounters work, step by step. And now for the next episode, because the sea doesn't repeat itself, but the tactics do. What happens when pirates target a ship that looks civilian, but the lone vessel is actually part of a trap? What happens when the bait is intentional, the response is already staged, and the swarm closes into a box it can't escape? If you want that story decoded like this one, subscribe now, and drop a comment with what you want next: submarine, drones, or seals. Because the next contact always starts the same way. Quiet water, a few fast wakes, and a decision clock that doesn't care who you are.